Stop messing around, stop fooling around, stop delaying, stop procrastinating. Get up, get out, get it done. Everything is possible, nothing is a problem, and anything can be overcome. I just get my ass up out of bed, I get my shit together, and I get out and I start the fight. And that will transform you from a mere mortal into a superhuman being. I've never, ever, ever met anybody who told me that they got rich watching their IRA or their 401k.
That's better, whatever that is. Whatever that is, George.
That is George Scholes Robson V.
George what? What's the middle name?
Scholes Robson V. Yeah.
Scholes?
Scholes. Scholes.
Oh, I love that. What is that?
That's actually my... I have no Robson blood in me. It's all Scholes. That the great whatever Scholes died, and then his son took on his stepfather's name, which was Robson. But yeah, I'm George Scholes Robson V.
That is a badass name, Scholes. I've never heard that, and I love it.
Yeah, it's a scholar. That's the kind of the root word.
Love that.
Yeah, so George Farmer, school, scholar, so I'm a scholarly farmer. Before we get started, I mean, welcome back, Peter. I haven't seen you in, I don't even know how long, so it's so good to see your face.
I don't have a cool name. I have a Hebrew name, which is Yonah Melech, which means King of the Doves.
Word, Yonah Melech. I like that.
King of the Doves. Yeah. But you are a scholarly farmer?
That's true, yeah.
That's great, man.
Yeah. Speaking of your Jewish name, or Hebrew name, how was your Passover?
Thank you for asking. My Passover was great. We were in Colorado, and up at altitude, the baking and the cooking is different than at sea level. Yeah. Right. So it's always an interesting Passover Seder when we're making things at altitude. Never really know how it's going to come out.
Well, today I wanted to start off, before we even get into all the conversation, that it was tax day this week, and I follow Morning Brew. It's a newsletter that I follow, and they had 3 tax facts or curiosities that I'm curious about, and so I wanted to share them with you. So the one was that people 100 years and older in New Mexico are exempt from the state's income tax.
I had no idea, but I love that.
Yeah, I had no idea, but it's like, it's kind of interesting. The second one I found more interesting, which is in 2009, local officials in China's Hubei province were required to smoke more cigarettes to boost sales tax collection. So they were fined if they weren't hitting their targets.
Artificially creating demand where there wouldn't otherwise be. Well, I don't know how fair that statement that is on my part, because governments everywhere have policy that is intended to stimulate demand. So that one just seems a little bit too obtuse, right. Like smoke cigarettes or else. That's weird. Usually we rely on the marketing machine of Madison Avenue to come out with messaging and commercials and whatever to entice typically younger people to go out and buy lots of stuff, cigarettes, whatever, But
it's interesting. I wonder if that is, I have no idea, but I wonder if that's part and parcel of a socialist government, meaning that obviously a private, Madison Avenue would be looked down upon in that particular culture, I suppose.
That sounds like a socialist government move. Yeah. That sounds like a government that doesn't understand economics and supply and demand.
And then this last one, I do feel like you'll probably have some thoughts. In 1696, England imposed a tax on windows to extract more revenue from the wealthy because their houses had more windows. But all it did was incentivize fewer windows in homes, and public health deteriorated from the lack of ventilation.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing that you would say that. And of course I have comments to that. So there's a phrase in the legal world called stare decisis. Sometimes I refer to it. I don't know if you recall. So it means that the judges look back on what previous judges in similar cases and how they ruled. And here's an example of tax policy from what year?
1696.
My God. Yeah. 1696. Yeah. Where they imposed a tax on windows because that's what the wealthy people wanted to spend their money on. And what happened as soon as that tax got imposed? They stopped buying windows and the quality of the housing stock deteriorated. Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, it sounds like today. No stare decisis going on today, looking back on his history and precedent to see what other governments and communities did. They just go ahead and continue to tax the things that they feel like taxing, and it kills demand. These policies are demand-killing policies. It's no wonder why back in 1696, the wealthy people just said, screw it, I'm not going to put windows in my house. Go bang yourself against the wall. That's what's happening today. I mean, look at, oh, God, George, where do you want me to start? I mean, everyone's trying to figure out housing policy. Everyone. All of a sudden, housing's now at the forefront, right? Housing was like, number 29 or 57 down on the list pre-pandemic of issues that governments and communities needed to tackle. Now it's like top 3, top 2 perhaps even.
Absolutely.
Look at Chicago. The guy there wants to triple the transfer tax on multifamily real estate. Triple it. And we talked about this. These cities and states and towns, they need money. They don't have any. What are they going to do? They're going to increase taxes mostly on property owners because that is the single biggest revenue source for the budgets of all these municipalities and governments.
Yeah.
Chicago is tripling, not like 30%, but tripling the transfer tax on multifamily. You want to know what's going to happen? No one's going to transfer multifamily.
Yeah.
Just like in LA, the transfer tax on property over $1 million or $5 million or $10 million. So just like in LA, where they set a threshold of increased taxes on the transfer of property over a certain price.
Yeah.
In Chicago, it's over $1 million. Any property, multifamily property over $1 million that gets transacted triples the transfer tax. Yeah. So I think it's like 0.75% currently, and it's going to go to like 2%. Mm-hmm. So it's like just about a tripling. Yeah. But you know what's going to happen? The small property owners, the mom and pops, our parents, our grandparents, families that own multifamily buildings where they live in the owner's unit and they rent out one or more of the other units to help pay for housing, right? They provide housing to help pay for their housing. Yep. No one's going to be able to transact. It's going to be too expensive. It's too problematic. They're killing the market. These policies kill the market. Yep. You have to find ways to generate your revenue without killing your markets. So Chicago doesn't have it right. There's other places that are trying to get it right with new housing policies. But you're talking about taxes. Look, if you want to tax the bejesus out of me on widgets, I'm just not going to make or purchase or use widgets anymore. I'm just going to go somewhere else and do something else.
Right.
I mean, with everything, we can see this. When the taxes get too high in our country, people will just go somewhere else. They'll do something else and go somewhere else. Because you can only tax up to a certain point before those who get impacted say, you know what, I'm throwing in the towel, I'm out of here. We have these idealistic conversations, and we hear about these conversations everywhere about, oh, well, we could tax this and that and the other thing, and we could raise the tax and look back to 70 years ago where the marginal tax rate was 90%. There's people pushing for 70, 80, and 90% tax rates. You want to know what's going to happen? No one's going to pay any of that. They're all going to move or do something else or form companies and move them offshore or move their businesses out of this country. I mean, I see businesses relocating out of this country every day.
You mentioned Chicago. So like they've had a mass exodus of corporations over the last year. And then recently, Walmart just left, and Walmart said they hadn't made a profit in I think 14 years or something like that.
They can't make a profit because the policy set up don't promote healthy free markets. The policy set up screw up all the market activity. They screw it up. You want to know what else about Chicago? Like New Jersey, similar to New Jersey, Chicago has underfunded pension obligations severely. There's no way for them to pay for all of the obligations they have to former employees, let alone all the current employees.
Right.
And it's going to mean raising more taxes in other ways on people. I mean, people are just going to buy one-way tickets out of these places. It's already happening, and it's sad. You need business leaders to resurrect markets and generate economic activity. I love quoting my friend. He's not my friend. I love quoting James Carville, right? James Carville, what did he say?
It's the economy, stupid.
It's the economy, stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, so pure and plain and simple. First of all, he's saying it's the economy. That's the most important thing. And then he says, stupid.
Yeah.
He didn't have to use the word stupid, but he does. And it's such a great punctuation on the first comment. And he's really emphasizing look, guys, nothing else matters. Issue number one is the economy. With money, we can do so much. With money, we can solve problems. With money, we can grow communities. With money, we can help people. But you want to know what you can't do if you don't have money? Anything. You can't do anything. And I love that he's a Democrat and he said, it's the economy, stupid, right? I love that. But it's so true. George, look, I'm picking an issue, right? Like healthcare, so important. We all need great healthcare. It always has to be affordable. But you know what? If the economy's strong, we'll have the money to obtain the healthcare we need. We all need paved roads. Right? So that we don't get flat tires that cost us $500 to fix. But if the economy's strong, the roads will be paved and we won't have to worry about it. We all need safe schools and great schools, right? If the economy's strong, we have more of a chance of getting that than not. My point is that all of these other things are clearly very important to all of us everywhere. All of our communities need all of these things to be paid for and dealt with. But you can't do any of it unless the economy is strong. It's the economy, stupid. In my core, it resonates and feels so different than when you say, it's the defense budget, stupid. Like, I don't know, like the economy, like that's the one thing we all share. That's the one common thread that goes through all of us. All 300 million of us in this country share that one concern. We all need our jobs. We all need our companies. Our employees need employers. Employers need people to work. Like we need customers. We need free markets. We need to be able to trade goods and services and buy and sell. Like we need all that stuff. We need the economy to be strong.
Yeah.
Without a strong economy, we're just flapping in the breeze like dolphins on the beach. What a powerful statement, because it really sums up in one, like, I don't even know if it's one sentence or two. What do you think?
Well,
is it?
I think it's one, right? Because
it's one.
It's a comma. I think
it's a comma.
Right,
it's so pure. It's like the purest thing I've ever heard a politician say. Really such an important concept. And if we could today grasp this concept and execute and make the economy number one, then gas prices come down. If we can make the economy number one, then wages can go up. If we make, I mean, right now, there's just like every other day, there's tens of thousands of layoffs, you know, and then people say, screw it, I'm not going to go back into the workforce. I'm not going to look for work. So then they don't show up in the labor numbers because the labor numbers only tells you the people that are looking for work.
Yeah.
You know, and so the layoffs now, the bankruptcies, the bank failures, the bank runs, the international policy that's going on right now, everything is number two to the economy. Everything is number two. You know, I'll never forget when Hurricane Sandy hit our area, the Jersey Shore, back in 2012. Our area lost power for, I think it was 9 days. Yeah. And I'll never forget what I saw. The first day, people were friendly, neighbors, helping each other out. You want to charge your cell phone? I have a generator, that kind of thing. Yeah. You need a jug of water? Here's water. The second day, same thing. Third, fourth, fifth day, same thing. You know what happened by day number 6? We turned into murdering, cannibalistic zombies.
Yeah.
And we couldn't take it anymore. And it became me instead of us. It became I instead of we. And I'll never forget what I saw. By day 6, people said, you know what? I can't give you this jug of water anymore. I need it for my survival, for my family, for my kids. You know what? I can't lend you any more money. I need money. I haven't gotten paid in a week, and I need my paycheck. And at the gas pumps, there was fist fights because people needed to buy gas to get to work so that they didn't get docked pay. I mean, I will never forget this. It's always the economy. We need to be able to make money. We need to harness and have access to that money to pay for food, housing, shelter, clothing, school, daycare, health needs, diapers. The diapers was another thing during Hurricane Sandy. You didn't find any diapers. And then during the pandemic with COVID, it was the toilet paper. So I just find it so interesting. Every time I try and analyze this and think about it, I always feel like it's the economy. The economy is the one thing that we all share. It's the most important. And yeah, it's more important than healthcare, because when I have money, because the economy's good, I can pay for my healthcare. But when the economy's not good and I don't have healthcare, I can't pay for my healthcare. You know, so like the first thing, it's like an airplane where they tell you to put the mask on you first and then your neighbor or your kid or whoever it is. Like, you know, otherwise there's going to be 2 victims instead of 0.
Yeah, I think
so
that's
I think
example.
it's a similar thing. You got me all jacked up with this,
Yeah,
George.
no, that's good. That's why I brought it up.
When people don't have health care or good health care, they sort of can still get by. If it's an extreme situation, obviously it's not great. But like if people don't have a job, if they don't have money coming in, they can't get by. Like you need the money to pay for the roof over your head and your food and the gas in your car and all that stuff. And none of that happens without a robust and strong economy. We don't have that right now. Everywhere I look, it's problems. And, the housing issue is climbed the ladder. As I said before, it's now top 2 or 3 issues that are of importance in our country.
Yes, so I actually want to talk about the housing thing because that's something I was going to bring up later, but I might as well bring it up now.
Please, go ahead.
We talked about conversions really ever since pandemic. That's been a constant topic of conversation.
Well, at the beginning of the pandemic, it was like hypothetical. Oh, you could convert empty buildings to housing.
And now
it's starting to get a little real.
Yeah. And so there was this research group called SPUR, and the local chapter of the Urban Land Institute suggested that there's 10,000 units in San Francisco that could be created into or renovated into apartment buildings from office buildings. But the city would have to lower fees and affordable housing requirements for this to happen.
But the city has to enable it.
Right.
All those vacant... By the way, for those who haven't been paying attention and sleeping under a rock, San Francisco is falling apart at the seams because all of these downtown billion-dollar office buildings are vacant and in default and getting foreclosed on.
Yeah.
So there's all this vacant space in the heart of downtown. And by the way, George, we called this 2 years ago.
Yeah, we did.
All this vacant space. So you're saying now that that could translate into approximately 10,000 units of housing, which we need, which San Francisco needs so desperately. But the city has to let it happen with its policies, with its economics. You have to lubricate the system and incentivize the investment that's necessary to convert all the office buildings from no units to 10,000 units. Right. You need private money to come in and do this. The government in San Francisco can't do it. They don't have the money. They don't have the expertise. They need private entrepreneurs and developers and investors to come in and take risk, put their money down, buy these buildings and convert them into residential. There'll be a lot of demand for that. But they need to make it possible. Unlike Chicago that's tripling its transfer tax, right?
Yeah.
Like San Francisco has to figure out how to be like, we're open for business. Come on in, come one, come all. Buy these buildings. If you convert from empty office buildings to residential, we'll give you X. And if you make a certain percentage of your residential affordable housing, we'll give you Y. Mm-hmm. And if you make more than a certain percentage affordable, we'll give you tax break. Like whatever it is, they got to do that. They have to. You know who's done that recently?
Who's that?
Florida.
Yeah, right. So I want to talk about that too. Yeah, the Live Local Act. I think
Live Local Act.
Right. Yeah.
It was like $700 or $800 million dedicated solely towards affordable housing
seven
in the state.
Yeah.
How much?
It was $711 million. Yeah.
I'll give you another example. New York City, just this week announced. Get ready for this. A $10 million budget to help convert vacant rent stabilized units that need to be renovated. $10 million. Great idea. Such a horrible execution, New York. I'm so disappointed. Although they did say that it's going to be a test to see if it really works. These rent stabilized units in New York that are sitting vacant, they're not getting renovated because the law that they imposed in 2019 in that city said that when someone moves out, like the new person has to essentially pay the same rent. Like you can't have a rent reset or a mark to market. Yeah. You can't have vacancy decontrol. Vacancy decontrol is the single biggest thing that allows the housing market in these regulated environments, New York City, New Jersey with rent regulations. Yeah. It's the single thing that allows the market to have a sliver of a fighting chance, because when the old tenant moves out, the new tenant can pay a negotiated fair market price, and then it's regulated from that point on. But at least the property owner gets the benefit of marking that rent to market when the new person moves in. In New York, you don't have that. You've got tens of thousands of rent stabilized apartments sitting vacant, and they're not getting renovated because it costs $100,000, $125,000. You have to do lead abatement. You have to put in electric and plumbing to code. I mean, it's a fortune in New York. You can imagine.
Absolutely.
And but New York City said, we'll give you $25,000. and they hope to get like 400 units back online. Right. It's never going to happen.
Yeah.
The renovations cost way more than that. And you know what else New York did? They said, we're going to reimburse you, not give you. We're going to reimburse you the $25,000 per unit. And we're only going to reimburse you if the expenses are qualifying. So you have to put this whole package together. Now it's like this administrative nightmare. Okay, so you have to keep books and the receipts. No problem. We do it anyway. And then you don't know if you're going to get approved. Great idea, just horrible execution. Yeah. It needs a way bigger number thrown at it. It needs more bold and expansive thinking. You can't just say 400 units, 25,000 a unit. There's $10 million. $10 million buys you like a condo in New York City. Right. It can't renovate, a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment for a family. Yeah. Just can't. That can maybe get the paint and the and the light fixtures, something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so back to San Francisco, which is, I digress. Yeah. But going back to San Francisco needs to lubricate that engine and incentivize and motivate people to come in. It's going to be really challenging for them because they hate rich people, they hate wealthy people, they hate entrepreneurs, and they hate the developers. And typically the entrepreneurs and developers have the money to do it. So there's this conflict, this clash culturally, emotionally that goes on with San Francisco and people with money. That's why everyone with money is left or is leaving. But they have to make it, they have to work on that relationship. They have to work on that clash because people who are developers and entrepreneurs are going to come in and solve this problem, but only if the city paves the road for them and lets it happen.
Yeah, it reminds me of our conversation last year about Houston, about their housing first policies and kind of treating homelessness there. And there seems to be San Francisco is basically the opposite of that treatment of their homeless problem and with all of their problems, really.
I find these policymakers are so afraid to be bold and so afraid to take the risk that I'm used to seeing business people take. Like this thing in New York, $10 million let me back up. The vacant rent stabilized apartment inventory in New York has been a hot topic for a few years, since 2019. I mean, it killed the market. We talk about supply and demand. There's no more supply of affordable units in New York City because the property owners aren't renovating them and making them available. Because you can't have someone move into a non-safe unit. You can't have someone move into these historically outdated where like a tenant lived there for 20 or 30 or 40 years, then they move out and the property owner can't just go and re-rent it. Like it's not going to pass code. There's things there's crumbling walls. There's like, that's the problem with housing stock. It's not forever. It's finite and it needs to be refreshed, renovated, refurbished, made safe, clean, and habitable for these families. And so for New York to say, you know what, we recognize that there's tens of thousands of units sitting there that could be rented, but they're not getting rented. We're going to throw $10 million at it. I mean, it's so wimpy, man. It's great idea, but it's so wimpy. And then to like backpedal and be like, oh, well, it's just a test. Like we really want to say. The test is going to show you this, New York City. The test is going to show you that $25,000 doesn't buy you a friggin' vanity cabinet and a faucet and paint and light fixtures, and you're not going to have any more units renovated and coming back on the market. Like what you have to do is you have to make it $100,000 a unit, and instead of reimbursing the property owner, you have to advance it to them, and then lien their building if they're in violation or whatever the rules are that you set up. But you have to advance the money out. You have to put the money out on the street. You need capital. The flow of capital solves in part a lot of the problems. The other part of the problem is you need the expertise and the human resources and the wherewithal to execute. Those two things, New York City, great idea. But $10 million for 400 units, you're going to see like a small percentage of units qualify for your $25,000 reimbursement. Maybe they'll come back online, and you're going to look to those small percentages of units as your example, and you're going to point to it. And you're going to say, see, it worked. It's not going to work, man. Out of the 400 units you want to come back online, you're going to get, 40, I'm guessing 10%. And the other 90%, no one's going to take the $25,000 because no one's going to want to put it out themselves and hope that you pay them back. And it's not enough anyway. To do the lead abatement is $35,000-$40,000 in these 2 and 3 bedroom apartments that are old from the 70s and 60s and 50s and earlier, some of them. And there's lead paint in there. You got to make it safe. And it's just $25,000 doesn't even get the lead abatement done.
Yeah, well, and it goes back to your, it's the economy stupid is how's New York going to pay for it? I think that's the, the big question of like, making a bolder statement requires more money. And
well, the other thing in New York, how they're going to pay for it is so on these $100,000 or $150,000 apartment renovations, which need to happen on all these warehoused, vacant, rent stabilized units, the permitting fees when you apply to the construction department to come in and rip the walls out and change the plumbing and electric and do all the lead abatement.
Yeah.
Permit fees will pay for most of it.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
So that was an interesting thing for me.
Yeah.
Because here you have the city giving $10 million to the property owners in hopes that they'll renovate units. Mm-hmm. And those property owners are going to be faced with probably, thousands and I don't know what the math is, but it's going to be thousands and thousands of dollars in permit fees.
Yeah.
If you want to renovate an apartment for $100,000 or $150,000, it's not $25,000. So great idea, New York City. Horrible execution. You have to increase the amount of money. You have to advance it, not reimburse the property owners. And you have to make it easier, man. It's so complicated and so hard. Just change a few things, increase the money, and you got a good plan.
Yeah. Yeah. Now with the Live Local Act, something that caught my eye, I don't know if you read through it, that, and maybe I'm incorrect about this, but it seemed like it's saying that there's a 40% set aside of like affordable housing. That seems like a very large set aside.
So here's what else is with that, George. It's not just the 40%. 40% is a big number.
Yeah.
But absent from that are requirements to use local contractors from that town. Absent from that are height restrictions. If you go to a number higher than 40% with the Live Local Act, they'll look at the zoning around a mile radius from where your subject property is, and you can go to the maximum height of what they find within a mile.
Gotcha.
And so, the builders and developers love height because you get more units stacked on top of the land. It's the economics are better.
Right.
Like the taller the building, the more units, and the better the economics are. So Florida recognizes that, so they're trying to get more density. That's how you create density. They're like, look, give us a high number of affordable, we'll give you a high density. It's a very simple negotiation. I understand that.
Yeah.
And they're also creating low-interest loan programs. They're creating all sorts of under policy to support the Live Local Act. I mean, they got $25 million going to low-interest loans. They've got another 20-something million going to different types of programs which incentivize the development. The other thing that the Live Local Act does, from my reading, is that it undermines all of the local zoning. So now the state says, look, whatever your NIMBY zoning is that's preventing things from getting built, that's out of the picture now. If you're in a multifamily or commercial zone where things are permitted to be built, like there's no more public opinion to shoot it down about the environmental impact of the shrimp and, oh my God, where the shrimp going to live? I mean, you need housing. You got to decide what's more important, the housing for human beings or the shrimp habitats. Like, you got to decide. I mean, there's an environmental argument for building anywhere, anything, at any time. You can always create an argument to oppose development and construction. Yeah. Like, you always can. Like,
yeah. That's another thing I want to ask you about was in Nuevo, California, there's this Villages of Lakeview project, which...
NIMBY sent, please. Now, right. I know I'm familiar with it, but tell it.
Yeah, well, and you can tell our listeners as well. But yeah, they just it's this stalled, decades-long project that has been going on that has been stalled by this environmental impact report. I think it's for bird.
California's trying to get it right.
Yeah.
They're trying. They have, like Florida, they've become so unaffordable. It's a joke. We talked about San Francisco. They're trying to figure it out. All these different towns and municipalities, they're trying to figure it out. It was 11,000 units of housing was going to be built. The environmentalists opposed it. They got it knocked down to, I think, 9,000 units of housing. It got approved. Then the environmentalists put up another lawsuit saying that, well, your environmental study is wrong. There's a water supply. No, look, you need to supply water, but I think they figured that out. I mean, it's not like an 11th hour thing that they never thought of. They thought about how to get water there. But these they're saying that the desert rats and the
I think it's birds, right?
And the owls, and I'm a big owl's my favorite bird. So don't get me wrong, I love the owls. But they're like choosing all these habitats, and they're like, you're going to pave over where the rats burrow their holes, and you can't build the housing. Guys, you got to decide what's more important: housing for the people who need it, who have no place to live and can't afford these high prices in your screwed up state because your policy has made housing prices so high. Like, you need housing for these people. So you got to decide, do the rats get to play on this land and live in this land, or do your residents get to live in this land? Like, I don't know. Yeah. Like, I'm an environmentalist. I love everything about the environment. I support all these environmental efforts to do everything that they do, from clean energy to saving endangered species to climate change, like all that stuff. But people have to live somewhere, and you can't keep NIMBYing these projects and pounding them down. I'm going nuts here, like I'm exploding the mic, but like you can't keep NIMBYing these projects and rejecting them and pounding them down in favor of the shrimp or the desert rats. Like, you can't do it. Otherwise, you're just never going to be able to provide enough housing. And you're all like, oh, well, the community, the habitats, the environment. But like, I can live here, but no one new can live here because the shrimp have to live here. I mean, it's completely ass backwards. Housing, top 2 or 3 issues in our world. As I've said, you got to decide who gets to live on the land. You got to decide if you can build. And if you can build, and I hope for God's sakes that you can, you have to enable it to happen with policies that motivate and lubricate the economic engine. It's the economy, stupid. You need to generate this money. And by the way, there's going to be ratables that the state could have and the town could have. There was going to be jobs. But, the desert rats are more important. I don't get it. Like, I just don't get it. It's such a luxury to be able to take an environmental opposition stance and say the desert rats have no place to burrow. Like, what? That is so lucky that you get to do that, whoever you are, who's, the environmental opposition. You're so lucky. What a great, luxurious thing for you to spend your time on, and for you to be able to research and then present it at council meetings, and then, try to oppose these developments. I can't think of, like, where else can you do that other than around here? And it's nuts because everyone has a voice and they want to present their voice, and the desert rats, I guess, take precedent. But it's scary, man. California needs a lot of fucking housing.
Yeah, it's a big state.
They need a lot of housing.
Yeah.
This was 9,000 units. Not going to happen. Desert rats are more important.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
It's like, as a developer yourself and, business owner yourself, how do you navigate that? Here in New Jersey, I'm sure you come up against that in a number of ways. New
Jersey, California, Illinois, New York, these states are uninvestable. You can't invest. Look at these developers. It was, like you said, it was decades. They got approved for 11,000 units. And then the desert rats opposed them, and they got it knocked down to 9. We thought everyone was happy. And then the desert rats opposed them again. I don't know where the desert rat opposition group is getting all their money. Mm-hmm. I don't know it's an impressive effort. I wish, I wish I knew how to do these.
Well, I think that's sometimes the irony of what you're talking about especially with NIMBYism, is that it's people who tend to be wealthier and have the time and, resources to devote to some of these lobbies, whereas someone who, just needs housing is concerned mostly with getting housing.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. So I wish San Francisco all the luck in the world in their office conversions to residential. They're going to have to come up with policy to enable that.
Yeah.
I wish Florida all the luck in the world. The Live Local Act, it sounds like it's coming out of the gate pretty good. I have no comments on that. New York City, I'm terrified for New York City. I have a home in New York City. Yeah. I'm in New York City all the time. I rely on New York City. I hope they can get it right. $10 million to unlock these vacant rent-stabilized units that are sitting there empty. Not enough.
Yeah.
And don't tell me it's a test. Like, be bold, throw more money at it, and you'll see that you can make a dent and help solve the problem. These cities, these places need housing, and they have to figure out what to do. So far, it sounds like Florida's got the lead over San Francisco, Chicago, and New York.
Which, when it comes to housing, is not surprising. That's been a trend for the last, at least 2 years. So,
but it's an unbelievable thing. All of it I find so fascinating because, George, it's the economy, stupid. It's the economy. You need housing. It's going to create the jobs, create the ratables. It's going to flood these towns with more money than it had before if they didn't build it. And people are going to have a place to live, right? It's like number 1 or 2 or 3 on people's list. We need places to live. But the opposition is just, it's amazing to me.
You'd mentioned, we were talking about the environmental lobby and environmentalism in general. And we always like to talk about new tech, new innovation, and Occidental Petroleum recently announced a plan to remove carbon dioxide from the air and store it underground via this
fans, right?
Yeah, the big fans and chemical binding in order to basically they would be making money off of the carbon credits that they would.
I love this one.
Making.
There's so much to unpack here.
Yeah. Yeah. So as a business owner, entrepreneur, do you see this as a moonshot effort that is an opportunity, or is it just a distraction from a pragmatic solution? Yeah.
An opportunity for who?
For them, like Occidental Petroleum, but also an opportunity for environmentalists.
Occidental cut a deal with the Biden administration. The Biden administration is throwing money at Occidental to try this test, right? Unlike the New York test. Big test. And I think they're doing this in Texas, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And they're going to suck out carbon out of the air and pump it down into the earth thousands and thousands of feet. My favorite part of what I read, where it should stay for centuries. It should stay there for centuries.
Yeah.
Look, I'm no scientist, so I don't know if it can stay there for centuries or if it's going to cause the earth to crack in half, or I don't know.
Yeah.
But I appreciated that the author of the article used the word should.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like they're not really...
They're not sure themselves.
They're not sure either.
Yeah.
Right. And the Biden administration also extended credits of various kinds, tax credits. But look, it's an important thing for them to do. You got to do something. We live in an era where there's climate change and there's crazy stuff happening. We're switching the way we consume energy. We're getting off of oil because of all of these climate issues, and we're going to electronic vehicles and other electronic appliances. And these big petroleum companies want to stay in business, and they want to be a part of the solution instead of just shuttering.
Yeah.
So they cut a deal with the Biden administration. They're going to try it out. Look, if it works, it'll be more than just Occidental Petroleum that's doing it. All the others are going to come on and do it. And it's also interesting because, we've become familiar with Biden being anti-oil industry, but this is sort of like a pro-oil industry move.
Right.
So I find that part fascinating as well. But look, you got to do something. And if someone can allege to suck out the carbon of the air and put it somewhere, God bless. Let's give it a shot.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, this kind of transition. It's a possible transition of value, like where we place our value. So oil, we think of oil as there's so much value in oil. That's just, it's liquid gold. That's what people call it. But at one point, oil has always been around. We've always had crude oil available on the earth, but until it was a fuel source, it wasn't worth anything to anybody. And so now with this situation where carbon dioxide is being converted into tax credits, and now it's a currency of some kind, it'd be interesting to see, now is carbon dioxide going to be some form of value that it wasn't before? And so that's something that's interesting to me.
Creating markets.
Yeah, exactly.
Unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
Carbon dioxide now is valuable.
Right. Yeah. Where it wasn't before. And it's wild.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Yeah. It's the economy, stupid.
It's the economy. And look at all the jobs. That'll probably create a lot of jobs with Occidental.
Right. Yeah.
I'm sure that's a part of it too. Yeah, at a time when people need these jobs. I think people need training in a lot of these jobs, but that's...
Well, I think it's the painful part of really this whole decade that we're in, where it's a lot of transitional periods for a lot of industries. And so people who are untrained need to be trained. And if they've already had a long career, that's going to be really painful for them, and, readjusting to these experiences. So just pray that we all, get through it.
Pray that we all get through it, and pray that these carbon deposits thousands of feet below the Earth's surface actually do stay there.
Yeah.
The first thing I thought about when I read that is just the Earth cracking open like an egg, and just we all just end existence.
Yeah, it does. It seems that way.
Sure, that won't happen, but I'm just
No, I had that same thought though. Yeah. We always talk about, get your money to the banks. That's one of the rallying cries that we've done.
Unbelievable,
throughout
right?
The show. Yeah. But what if that bank is Apple offering a 4.15 interest rate?
I love that you brought this up.
Yeah.
So at a time when, as consumers, we're so frustrated because the banks have our money and they pay us 0.1% or whatever it's been over the past bunch of years, right? Mm-hmm. And they never had any motivation to pay us more for our deposits. Now the pendulum has shifted. And now consumer deposits are the single greatest thing and the single biggest concern and asset that all these banks are now scrambling to go after.
Right.
They want our deposits now. Before they were like, give me your deposit. Don't give me your deposit. We don't care. We're only going to pay you 0.1 of, 1%.
Whatever it is, yeah.
Now, Apple, who's cash rich, who's in a bunch of different businesses, says, look, we're going to be in the bank industry now. We're going to compete with these crappy banks. They're going under. There's bank runs because they're not paying the consumers enough on their deposits. We're going to offer 4.5%. We're going to tie it into Apple Pay. We'll offer a credit card. Of course they're going to do that. You know who else I think is going to do it? Watch Amazon. I bet you they're going to enter that space as well.
Yeah, no, that's what I was going to ask. Yeah,
and in a free market, let the competition come in and beat me, or let the competition come in and let me beat them. But this is an example of why a free market is great. Right here, George. Apple's coming in, paying consumers 4.5% on their deposits. They're going to get a lot of consumer deposits. People are going to withdraw money from these banks. There's probably going to be more bank failures in the regional bank size. And Apple's going to take business away. That's competition. That's free market. And it's better for the consumer because now my money is earning 4.5% as compared to, shit percent is what it's earning now. And that's better for me as a consumer. It's going to be better for you as a consumer.
Right.
So this is a great example of why free markets are great for the consumer. And we have to watch this. There's going to be other players that are going to come in. I already mentioned Amazon. I'm sure there's going to be others. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw the high cash rich companies, the insurance companies, maybe a Walmart, people that already have consumer credit cards like the retailers are going to offer APR on a deposit. And they're going to link it to your credit card account or your debit account. And it's going to enable you to shop with discounts. I don't know what's going to happen, but you can imagine all of that stuff, right? Because up until now, we've just had the banks competing for our deposits. Other people want those deposits too, and they're going to pay for them. And the banks should have, and they didn't. And now watch what's going to happen. There's going to be more bank fracturing, and people are going to remove their money from the banks, and they're going to go to Apple, and they're going to go to Amazon, and they're going to go to crypto. Crypto's going to come up with solutions for this too. You watch.
I don't know who said it, where I heard this for the first time, but that it seems all industries go through a process of centralization and decentralization, and it's basically just cycles of that.
Yes, it is.
And so like we see right now with streaming services, basically it's becoming just like the cable companies were in the 90s. It's re-centralizing in the same way that they were formerly. And that's just the pattern. That's what we do as a society over time. But the banking industry, we're seeing the opposite, which is that seems to be in this decentralized trend right now, and having Apple come in, Amazon come in, Google come in, that's creating this new dynamic. And I wonder if you'll see this is a new transitional point, just like how carbon dioxide is transitioning into a different kind of value. Maybe these industries are going to transition into a completely different animal.
You want to know what's an interesting talking point?
Yeah.
If Apple pulls this off and they get a lot of consumer deposits because they're paying 4.5%, and something goes wrong. Let's say Apple goes out of business. Well, they have a $250,000 limit on the deposit, so they're FDIC. But let's say something goes wrong and people can't get their money, or they can't link to their Apple Pay. Is the federal government going to bail out Apple? Are the federal government going to step in? Because that's what they do when the banks fail. I want to let the banks fail. I want to let shitty businesses fail. Because that's what I want in a competitive free market. I want the winners to win. I want the losers to lose, so that I can pick the winners. As a consumer, I want to pick the winners. I don't want to pick a loser bank, or a bank that I put my money with just because it's the closest one to my house or on my way to work or something like that. Like, I want winners. So I'm for this. I'm for the competitive landscape and the free market environment that seems to be present right now with these bank deposits. May the best bank win. That's what we want as consumers. That's what we want as a society. The governments, I think, often get it wrong and spend a lot of time, money, and resources saving and protecting. And I think there's other ways. And one of those other ways is to let them fail. Like, we don't save our kids losing soccer team. Oh, you know what though?
We kind of do.
I shouldn't have spoke. We sort of do, right? Everyone's a winner. They get trophies too.
Yeah, no, we do that.
Oh God, I shouldn't have spoken so fast.
Yeah. I was listening to Andrew Huberman. He's the neuroscientist. He was talking about the phenomenon of everyone wins trophies, and how it kind of disrupts your dopamine, serotonin, feeding system. So I'm not.
Wait, what?
Like the dopamine is like the.
No, I know what dopamine is.
Right. Yeah.
Just rewind it and play it again for me.
Yeah. So that, for our listeners, for people that don't know, dopamine is what makes you crave things. It's what drives you to, pursue. And serotonin is what, satiates. And those are the kind of how that functions in the body. And
trophies for everyone disrupts that.
Yeah, because obviously if everyone gets a trophy, then
there's no dopamine and there's no serotonin.
Exactly.
Don't reward yourself with external rewards very often. So make the training its own reward. So if it's, I'm going to train and then I'm going to have the pancake breakfast, great. Do it every once in a while. But don't do it every Sunday. Don't do it every workout. And you can see this in sports teams and some of the challenges over the years of, everyone gets a trophy. I mean, nothing is more undermining to the dopamine system than that idea. I mean, I don't know what happened with that, but you actually diminish the role of rewards in every way, and you take away the ability to access the reward system in the future.
Yeah. So it's an interesting, thing to consider when you're creating systems.
I love that you went there with that. Dopamine and serotonin.
Yeah, I mean, that's just where my brain went. So
yeah,
I want to talk about trading time for money is something we've talked about before. And IKEA said that at their new store in Dubai, they're going to offer credits in exchange for the time that it takes you to travel to the store, and you document it with a Google Maps thing. Yeah,
brilliant marketing by IKEA. Brilliant marketing, because on everyone's mind is the economy. How can I afford to buy things? I have to furnish my apartment. I need a bed for my kid. Like whatever it is, a lot of people go to IKEA. Our family goes to IKEA. What a cool place. I love the design. I don't love assembling the stuff, but I do it. And I'm pretty good at it too. They want to pay you for the time it takes to drive to the store. What a great marketing campaign. Brilliant. I think they're in partnership with Google Maps on this. So the customer comes in and shows the time travel according to Google Maps, and then you get credits towards whatever it is you want to buy. And it's meaningful because some people live an hour or 3 hours or whatever it is away from an IKEA, and they want to get IKEA's products and services. So they have to drive far, but it's hard because we have to work. We have families to take care of. I don't have the time to drive an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours to an IKEA. IKEA is paying us for that. It's brilliant. It's going to drive traffic. Every business needs to find something like this. And I love this because it's so like issue of the day, And I applaud IKEA for this. Very smart, whoever came up with it.
Yeah. And then this other thing that has been, I think, everyone's mind. There's articles coming out every month about foreign governments seeking independence from the dollar, from the U.S. dollar.
Tied for the single biggest problem we're going to face. But please go on.
Yeah, so the most recent one that I saw was President Macron of France spoke of the need for strategic autonomy from the U.S.
Of course he said that.
Should U.S. business leaders be worried about this?
Yes, they should.
Yeah.
Yes, they should. Yeah. We are the superpower that we are in this country for many reasons, one of which is that our currency is used and relied upon by many, many, many countries around the world, most countries around the world. If you remove the demand for the U.S. dollar, because these countries like France and Turkey and Russia and China, and I heard that Saudi Arabia and some African countries are involved as well, if you remove all of that demand, there's going to be problems. Now, I think that there's going to be problems for them as well, because they're going to be cut off from a lot of trade and a lot of commerce and a lot of other things that sharing in the U.S. dollar provides. But it's going to be a big problem for us because, as we've said, supply and demand for everything. So if demand for the dollar drops, it's going to be unlike anything that we've seen in recent times.
Right, yeah. Is there anything that can be done on a low level, like other than, this is all governments talking about these kinds of things, but are businesses do they have any agency in this kind of situation?
Well, you can't do anything yet. No, as individuals and as business owners, we can't really do anything. It's going to fuel the crypto markets. I promise you that. Speaking of crypto and speaking of leaving when regulations get too tough, Coinbase announced that it's going to move out of the United States to somewhere else.
Wow.
They just said that. So within, I think, a few days, we're going to see what the decision is and where they go.
Yeah, which makes sense with the SEC, pressure that's been going around. Yeah,
I don't blame them. I can still buy and sell my crypto if Coinbase is located in another country.
Right.
I can still own my crypto if Coinbase is located in another country. But when Coinbase is located in the United States, it's subject to the federal rules and the SEC guidelines, and they're changing the rules on these guys. So they're going to leave. It just popped into my head because we were talking about people leaving Chicago and people leaving these places because of legislation and regulations and tax policy. Well, this is another one. Yeah, there's another company that's leaving.
Yeah, and again, that's the trick. I feel like whenever there's, you want things to be regulated to the extent that it's safe for consumers, but at the same time, when those regulations become too draconian, then you have people leave. And that's,
if it's too much, people have to make it. These business owners have to make a decision.
Yes,
if it's too much, George, if it's too much, these business owners have to make a decision. Does it make sense for me to stay here and be subject to the rules and the taxes, or am I better off leaving? At some point, you have to pay the piper. And look, I remember I lived in New York City for like 27, 28 years. When I had a child, like everybody who lives in New York, who then has kids, you're faced with a decision, right? You look in the mirror and the abyss is staring you down, and you have to decide, do I double down and get a bigger apartment in New York City and live in New York and raise my kids in New York? Or do I leave and go to, Connecticut, Westchester, Jersey, wherever, right? Where I can get like a house with space and public school systems are great. And it's not $1 billion. It's like I can maybe afford it. And because in New York, if you're in like a 1-bedroom apartment, which we were all in, and then you start having kids, and then you're like, oh no, I need like a 3-bedroom apartment, like a 3-bedroom apartment.
Yeah,
it's like
childcare is
it's impossible. So that's what the companies in this country face. Mm-hmm. Do we stay in California, in Illinois, or do we move to Texas or Florida? Do we even stay in the United States, or do we move to somewhere else?
Right. Yeah.
And that's what's going on. People are moving because they can't take the pressures of the regulatory environment and the taxes. It becomes too much of a pain in the ass, and it's too expensive. This is what owners of businesses think like. When you're the owner of the business of your household, your family, your kids, your partner, whatever it is, like you own that. That's yours. If you don't like the taxes in California or in Illinois, like we've seen a lot of people, they decided to leave. When you own a business, you have to decide, like, am I going to sit here and take it, or am I going to do what's best for the shareholders of my company, what's best for the business? Am I going to move to a jurisdiction that I can thrive in instead of get crushed by?
Yeah.
And that's what it's like when you own something. You gotta be able to make decisions like that, and your brain has to be able to process that.
Yeah, that's a quote of yours, the think like an owner and your world will change. And
yes, think like an owner.
Yeah. It's been very popular for
us.
I
have these conversations with my team all the time.
Yeah.
Think this: when you own assets, when you own businesses, when you own responsibility, you have to think like an owner. You have to think like an owner. You can't say, oh, well, whatever, or, oh, well, I'll deal with it tomorrow, or, oh, geez, I just, it's not my job. I'll just let Bobby do it. That, you don't get to do that. Mm-hmm. You think like an owner. You have to take the responsibility. You have to put the weight on your shoulders, and you have to make decisions that benefit the most people the most significantly. Mm-hmm. And there's no two ways about it. You have to think like an owner in your personal life, in your business life. If you think like an employee, or if you think like a lazy, complacent person that doesn't care, or one of these anti-work, movement, mindsets going. If that's how you think, you're just never going to. You can't make decisions, because despite the fact that you don't like making decisions, and despite the fact that you don't want the responsibility, and despite the fact that you hate the man and the whatever, right? Despite all of that, the world still moves and rolls that way. So you either got to think that way and make decisions that are going to be good for you and your family, or your business, or your company, and your employees, or you're just going to get crushed. I think more people need to think like owners.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that most people, when they hear being an owner, they think of, well, I'm in charge, and so I get to do whatever I want, when in actuality, what you're talking about is you're actually constrained by the responsibility of what that means. And it's, taking responsibility, not doing whatever you want.
I don't think, oh, I'm an owner, I can do what I want. Mm-hmm. I mean, other people put that on me. They say, oh, Peter, you must be able to do what you want all the time. Well, I'm an owner. I have to do what my people want, my customers want. I don't do what I want. Mm-hmm. I mean, I make the decisions. So you could sort of spin that, to mean that I do what I want. But I have an obligation and a duty to all the people in my life and around me who rely on me.
Yeah.
So it's not a selfish act at all. It's you know, I wish I didn't have it sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, because it's stressful. It's a lot of work. I don't sleep.
Yeah.
But that's the way the world works. That's the way it is. And the world needs people to make decisions. I want more people to be able to make the decisions that benefit themselves and their community and their people and their employees and their family. So I want them to think like owners more.
Love it. All right. Well, that's what I got today, Peter. Is there anything we've talked a lot?
Oh man,
covered a lot. Yeah. Anything else that you wanted to share before we head out?
When I go to a Yankees game, they have the subways up on the screen who are racing, and you get to choose if it's the A, B, C, or D train that's going to win and get to the stadium first.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the metaphor for San Francisco, Illinois, New York, and Florida with the housing policies. Like I wonder
I'll try and
who's
put
going to
together
win.
some kind of like animation for that.
It's time for the great housing race presented by the Daily Cash Flow. Down below the Empire State Building at the starting line, we have the Florida train, the Chicago train, and the New York City train. Ready, set, go! And they're off. Our trio of trains are headed uptown to housing heaven. Florida and Chicago jockey for position as the New York City train swipes the lead with a shortcut up the east side. We take an aerial view of Times Square as Florida charges forward, and down the tracks they go. It's anybody's race. They head to the finish line, and the winner is the Florida train. That's all, Daily Cash Flow fans. Thanks for joining us for the Daily Cash Flow Great Housing Race.
Well,
George, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I'll see you next time. If you like what you just heard, you can subscribe to the Daily Cash Flow on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And we'd love it if you left us a comment or review. You can follow us on TikTok and Twitter at SiegelCap, and on Instagram at Siegel.cap. As always, if you're an accredited investor, go to SiegelCapital.com and take our survey to see if you qualify to take part in one of our apartment building deals. That's SIEGEL Capital.com.